podcast. I am Steve Cox with the Rogers-Lowell Chamber, joined as always with Nick Smith. And Nick, we got a fun one today talking about early childhood education.
That's right.
You recently got to experience the joy of a wonderful quasi-raise by having a child get out of daycare and a little extra money in your pocket. But it's a serious issue. It really is.
It really is.
And so we're very excited. We have two wonderful guests with us here today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce them real quickly, and then we'll get into the news and then start the show.
Sure thing. So today we are actually joined by Michelle Wynn, co-director of Childcare Aware of Northwest Arkansas.
Thank you,
Michelle,
Rogers-Lowell Chamber board member.
That's right. I hadn't gotten there yet. As well as Dina Ford, owner with Wild About Learning Academy and Wild About Learning Academy West. Thank you for joining us, giving us the early childhood education heads up from both of y'all's perspectives. I'm sure we're going to have lots of details that we can dive deep in and really just blow everybody's mind with later. But first things first, we want to get into our NWA in the news conversations from the last couple of 3 weeks. Announced just this week, three companies, Cox, Dell, and Epic.io, announced plans to introduce AI to software aimed at curbing shoplifting at the NWA Tech Summit, which is happening this week, which was pretty big, of course, around here.
Right across the street, yeah.
That's right. We've got a lot of folks who are in the commerce sector, especially when you think about Walmart and groups like that. So that's going to be big news for them. Healthcare opt-in season is here starting tomorrow. You're going to be able to do another year of enrollment in things like the Affordable Care Act. The marketplace opens November 1st for those folks who are interested in that. And then I'm sure all the employers out there are going to be rolling out their plans as well for open enrollment. So keep your eyes out for that. And then last but certainly not least in my eyes, the Arkansas Razorback basketball team defeated number 3 Purdue last week in an exhibition game to open their season with a bang. This is the 5th year under Coach Musselman, and I'm really excited to see where they go from here.
It was a really good game. Overtime, it was a lot of fun. Bud Walton was rocking. You could hear it through the TV, man.
That's right. I love that we actually are now into the sports that, really kind of hammer it home. No offense to the football team. I'm a fan nerd. I love the football team. I'm there. I watch every game. At the same point in time, there is something nice to actually get to sing the "Oh, it's hard to be humble and mean it" at the end, as opposed to just wishful thinking.
Well, it's going to be a good season no matter what, so we're very excited. But let's get into our topic. We are talking, as I said, early childhood education. And typically, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's 6 weeks through pre-K is kind of the range there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's where we are. So, 6 weeks through there, that's a long time, 3.5, 4 years, depending how that goes in terms of getting into kindergarten and things like that. And it's a vital piece of the American economy, a vital piece of the local economy here up in Northwest Arkansas, because it allows parents to go to work. And we're seeing some information and studies that are showing that is actually having an impact on the local labor market, and specifically in the United States as well. And a report that says that insufficient child care that is not there for children under 3, it depletes the country of $122 billion each year in lost earnings, productivity, and revenue. The state of Arkansas itself is $895 million. 78% of parents surveyed said that they had missed work within the last 90 days because of child care issues. So it's impacting productivity, and I saw a study that showed 25% of the female workforce is not active in the workforce because of a lack of reliable child care. So really looking forward to getting the input and feedback from our guest here as we talk about this issue. What can we do? What can be done? What solutions are there? And so, Michelle, you and I have had this conversation going on for years. We're trying to make it better. It's impacting. COVID really made childcare come to the forefront when so many centers shut down. And so, I guess my first question is, how are we fixing it? No, I'm just kidding.
That's a tall order.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I think just to piggyback on that, we were talking before the show that this is a multifaceted problem. I mean, there's every angle that you can look at this, from folks needing help just to get daycare centers off the ground, to finding employees to staff those daycare centers. You've got government regulations, both federal and state, that detail, how many teachers you have per student, how big certain spaces have to be, certain requirements in terms of meals, and what you can actually do with kids, on, off, all sorts of stuff like that. That's crazy. When someone who's in this next gen group who looks at all of this, it probably just is like a waterfall, right? And it just is too much to take in. When you're talking about this with folks in terms of the early childhood education crisis,
There we go. Get there.
where do you start? Like, how do you start those conversations with people when you're trying to address these issues?
Well, I think the first thing is to figure out where they're looking for childcare. So when a family moves to our area, number one, we can't keep up with the demand of childcare because of the growth. So they need to first start looking for childcare when they move to the area and figuring out where's going to be the best place for their family. And go to different places, and there's quality rating too. So we would encourage that family to look up what is quality rating. So when they're going to a facility, they can learn more about it. That's through the Better Beginnings process. And ask when you're at the daycare center to have a tour, what is their curriculum? What is Better Beginnings? And ask those questions and just be aware of where you're putting your child and what's the rules and regulations and the expectations.
Absolutely. I just want to touch and add in on that. Like she said, the parent needs to do the homework and just really establish what facility best meets their family's background. We are all different. We all come independently. Some are charter schools, so then there's even additional rules and procedures, regulations that they have to adhere to outside of the private sector. You touched on it earlier. There's state rules and then there's federal rules, and those all look different. And so sometimes that family's expectation is just not something my personal facility can take on. And we just have to be very transparent as providers, both sides of that fence, as to what we can offer and just see if that aligns with the families, because, we may not be for everyone.
For sure. So when folks start the process and they start looking, I mean, is this a case where, they just call around, see who has openings? I mean, are you guys running into, I know when folks talk about like childcare deserts, the biggest thing they're talking about is just not a lack of open spaces. Are you seeing that as a main issue right now? Are you seeing long waiting periods? What are some of the things that folks are running into as they start checking around the area for childcare?
Well, one thing, through the Childcare Aware office, they can call our office, and we actually cover 17 counties. So when a family comes here, we can tell them opening prices, that type of things, and ratings too when it comes to price range. So that's how we can be that resource for families, and that's how we partner with our existing childcare providers too. And so we're able to give them that refer list so they can go out, look for the providers that's going to meet their need too. So definitely, reach out to us, and then we can give contacts for them to go look out in the community. But we're definitely seeing the long waiting list for childcare providers. We're seeing our providers that have rooms that are open, but we don't have staff. So that is the issue, that we have rooms ready for children to be in, but no staff. So that's our next issue for sure, is finding quality staff for the classrooms.
What would you say is your biggest challenge right now at running two centers?
Sure. I'm going to agree with what Michelle said right now, is staffing, that quality individual who, comes to us degreed or with just the rules of the state. Everyone is trainable, and I am all in. I'm a center that loves professional development. I'm a trainer for the state of Arkansas, so we do a lot of in-house training also. But like she said, it's staffing. I'm not going to just hire anybody with a heartbeat. There's certain qualities that I'm looking for as an owner, because that's my name, that's my brand. And if they can't follow basic rules, then they certainly can't care for children. What I'm getting is just, when we get those calls of vetting our facility, is just, do we have openings? How much does it cost? Do we accept federal funds, vouchers, those type of things? We can quickly give off those answers. Those answers can be found on the division website of the state. Those answers can be answered through Michelle's office and agency, or just straight to our website. But the calls that we're getting is just, do you have availability right now, and how much does it cost?
Right.
And a lot of the times the feedback is, ooh, that's expensive. Personally for my center, our daily rate is $57 a day. And if you break that down over the 11 hours the children are able to be there.
Yeah, $5 an hour, basically, yeah.
Which that touches on two things. First, I wanted to ask, you kind of make up a good point when it comes to staffing. You're talking about folks who are going to be representing your brand, and your brand is more than just essentially a babysitter for 8 hours a day. I mean, you are providing a service up to 11 hours a day. And again, these regulations, I think a lot of folks don't understand. When we say regulations, we're not just talking about like you need to have an LLC and a building with a playground, right? Like
That's correct.
So when folks are looking at childcare options, I mean, give a rundown, maybe just a bulleted list of some of the things that stand out in terms of like things you're required to produce and whatnot that you can think of, just so folks kind of have an idea of what you all essentially have to do just before you can even open your doors. Like what's that look like for you all?
To start up a daycare
Yeah.
in our town? Okay. So you have to have your years of experience, right? You have to have your public education behind you to be a credentialed director or to have a credentialed director within your facilities. You can have the same one, you can have various ones at each campus, but they're credentialed, and those rules come from the state and from the Fed. We can have additional things on top of that for our individual facilities, but for mine, I mean, they've got to come to me with education, they've got to come to me with years of experience, and that interview process is a few steps for wild, and they've got to get through all of those gates before they're on the floor and training with me.
Wow.
And so what does that training entail? Like once they're in the door, once you've got them there, I mean, it doesn't stop. It's not, again, you're not just kind of throwing them to the toddlers as it is, right? You've got a process there. What does that look like?
Things have changed. 20 years ago was a lot quicker. I think that our process is we sent them to like an 8 to 10 hour training here in our town locally. Those things have ceased since COVID. We don't have a whole lot of in-person. Everything's gone to Zoom. And so it's hard to pull our teachers out of their classroom days and schedules to get that professional development. And those professional development hours are only really offered most often during the workday. So there's another hardship for our industry is to just keep our teachers, educated and up to the newest policies and regs and training out there when they just don't even have time to step out of the classroom because their focus should be that front line. Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure we joke around about when we just have to take like 2 hours to go do, a podcast, for instance.
Yes.
We have to make sure someone is covering the desk back at the office, things like that. When you're talking about like professional development for your teachers, we're already talking there's a teacher shortage. So then on top of that, you're going to have to provide professional development hours on top. Here's where I start getting to the whole, this is cumbersome, how do I start attacking this problem type deal?
Right.
Because this feels like kind of a snake eating its own tail type deal. Like you're providing a service that is obviously essential for so many out there, and yet we really have very limited resources and ways just locally to try and help. So what ways could the either state legislature or federal legislature or even local governments and groups, what ways can we start working on to try and help get your business the help that it needs to make sure that this ball keeps rolling a little bit better without obviously kind of giving you more stumbling blocks to run through and things like that?
Sure. I think the best way that corporations or our government can help us is to just step up our funding. That funding, it helps us go to professional development, send those teachers, or actually bring in teams to our area for those trainings. A privately owned daycare owner like myself, I'm single. I don't have, a partner. I don't have business partners or anyone to help me with that funding. And so I have recently opened our doors to the voucher program. That has been very helpful. But again, there's additional rules there. So, corporations in town, community sponsors, they can help in a lot of different ways, not just monetary. Maybe it's volunteer time. Maybe it's coming and helping with bulletin boards or gardens out on the playground or big events. They can maybe host a meal, or if they have experts that can come in and talk to our people about mental health or about just different components of what we deal with each and every day. We are just seeing far more complex issues within the daycare setting today than we did years ago when I began.
Yeah. And it seems like I think a lot of people just feel like, it's just babysitting. But it's not. There's curriculum. There's things that are going into it. And so, like, for you, what are you guys seeing in terms of just maybe a disconnect between the general public and the work that you all are actually doing? And it's vital because, there have been studies after studies. They did a big one in Detroit, decades-long study where they put some kids in pre-K and some kids didn't, and they studied them. And when they looked forward, they just did an update on it very recently, and it was something like the kids that went to pre-K, one, made more money, had better education standards, and staying out of prison was a major factor that was in there. It's fascinating just how important what's going on inside the classrooms at such a young age.
Right. Our teachers have a big hat. they wear a big hat. They're not just the nurturer. They're not just the educator. They're there to teach emotions and sort through all of those feelings. They're there to help regulate and calm those behaviors and those emotions. You have children, so when the scale tips, I mean, it's hard to get that back over.
Oh, that never happened. No.
Right?
We have a podcast that proves different.
Either. Not in my school either. But if or when it would, that's the difference I think that, my instructors have, is that they're there. They're intentional. They're not just there on their schedule, right? If they go over that schedule, they're there for the betterment of that child. They're there until that impact, that time management with that kiddo is done.
Right. Now, Michelle, we really haven't explained what Childcare Aware of Northwest Arkansas is, so that's our fault for not asking sooner.
You're fine.
But let everybody know kind of what you guys bring to the table and the wonderful work that you all do.
Okay, thank you. So the Childcare Aware office, we are a resource here in the community, helping families find childcare and providing parent education.
You have said this so many times, like you can see it, she's just spouting it off.
And we are the supporter for our early childhood providers. So for Dina and all these directors out here, we want to be the heart, and we want to support them, and we know how important it is to have them here in the community for these families to be able to go to work. So providing them that training, providing just the different needs, and trying to reach out and help them too. That is part of our service for sure. And also, something we have not brought up is just reaching out to our local businesses and expressing, why is early childhood important? These are our future workers. And these children that a lot of people don't realize, the brain is developed 90% by age 5.
Right.
And to some people, that's amazing. That's why we need quality educators in the childcare setting. That's going to help them be successful when they get to kindergarten. And so we've got to fight for these early childhood teachers, and we've got to have good directors, and we've got to have good programs that are going to help the jobs in our community later.
And I think a unique thing about Northwest Arkansas, you mentioned family. A lot of times they're a fallback, a grandparent or an uncle, sibling, something like that. But with so many people in Northwest Arkansas moving from other parts of the country, they don't have that family support network.
Yes.
And so that's why childcare is also so much more important. And, there's a reason why Walmart's building a big giant childcare center on their campus. And at the State of the NWA session they did last week, the chief people officer for Walmart actually said that they are using that as a recruitment tool.
Yes.
And they saw more excitement when they announced that than they did about the $2 billion home office. Like just that one part. And they were like, hey.
Yes.
I think that every parent can say, our children are our world, and we should put them first. And so those things, that is, part of a hiring package, and it's going to sell.
Yeah. It's starting to become more and more benefit based, where that student debt relief, like all that's coming in as benefits package for the next gen.
Truly, childcares are popping up all over the place. It's kind of like banking, right? There's one on every corner. But those quality programs, like she talked about, are the ones that are engaging with Arkansas Better Beginnings.
Right.
But with those additional quality, come additional things that we get to do on the inside, and that just costs money. It takes time. It takes manpower of our people. And so we've just got to get, strong recruiting. And then when we get those good workers, we've got to, retain them and treat them well.
To kind of piggyback on something that you were touching on earlier, and to emphasize just how important this early childhood education is. A lot of times I think folks think about when you have kids. First off, I think most people when they have kids are like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Right? Like you take the kid home and it's like...
You can read all the books you want, but no.
And you have no clue. And one of the things that I learned really quick with both of my kids in daycare is like, I always thought about like things that you teach your kids in general, and stuff that you don't think about, but I can honestly say was very imperative for both of my kids growing up and doing pre-K, was the emotional well-being, being able to express emotions in a non-destructive way.
Yes.
Which, if you don't have kids, maybe sounds foreign, but like, especially having
crazy.
2 boys that are only 2 years apart, non-destructive ways of dealing with emotions are very big in my household right now. And I still am clueless as to how to handle some of that stuff, but so many of the lessons that our teachers were able to teach them and they brought home to us, we wouldn't have gotten that anywhere else. And most of them got that from doing the trainings that you're talking about and things like that. That's just one facet that I had no clue about. And I have a wife who, like you said, read every book under the sun before we ever had a kid. And same deal. There's so much stuff that you just don't know about, and this is what they do for a living. So as good as you get at your job, that's what these folks are trained to do. Sure. And it's more than just CPR training and being able to change a kid's diaper, right? Like,
right.
I think that's really important for folks to stress that you provide a program that does all of these things, but also for our kids being our world, for our kids being something that's so important to us, they become better people because of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
And that's not a knock on anyone who keeps their kids home, but like, I couldn't have turned my kids into the kids that they are now without the help of all those wonderful teachers that they, have come across along the way. Mm-hmm. So
those social emotional interactions are by far the most important thing that a child can have at a foundational level, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And like I said, the brain developing in that time frame, and just so many studies showing the difference that it has in order to not just be able to have that social interaction. So you're learning social skills, the emotional intelligence of the children in child care versus not. Like it's mind blowing how the vast difference that early childhood education makes.
Right. And teaching them, like you mentioned, some of those calm down techniques at a young age, it's going to be life effects. As they're an adult, they're going to realize that, I have children also, and that I remember through conscious discipline, they're like, we just need to breathe. This is what my teacher taught me, or we need to do these things. And I was like, just like you mentioned, they're learning and role modeling from great teachers that they have at a young age. And what you want is to go to the families, and then it's teaching those families those parent education and those tips too of how we can work together as a family. It's going to help them be better as adults too.
Oh yeah. Well, and the programs that these schools are putting together for parents as well. I mean, you all do things that teach parents how to take some of these lessons home and do them. I've seen different programs doing like Parents' Night Out and things like that. I mean, a lot of folks, again, don't have family in the area to babysit. And so those Parents' Night Out once a semester were great for us because it was like, you'll watch both my kids and feed them, and it only costs like $10 or $15 or something like that for the evening. Yeah, okay, I'm in.
You're in, yeah.
Yes.
That stuff you're not going to find anywhere else.
No.
Especially with people who are trained to handle that kind of thing. And so I just think that's imperative for folks to kind of really quantify what all you get when we're talking about early childhood education. Yeah.
I just had a thought. Our last podcast we recorded, two ago, we talked about the rise of remote work and how that's here to stay for a while. Do you think that is helping or hurting the early childhood education by having a single parent that can do a remote job and then doesn't have necessarily that need, but then the child is not getting that education and training? So I literally just thought of this. So, I'm not sure if it's the best worded question or not, but
I won't say in my strong opinion, but in my opinion, I think it's a detriment.
Okay.
I do. Post-COVID, I've seen, just an uptick in behaviors in the classroom that we were not seeing prior to COVID. And I just feel like that might be some of that fallout, if mom or dad were on a Zoom call, where was toddler? On the coffee table, or were we coloring walls? Because we're seeing some of those things, and it's nothing that we're teaching or not teaching at school.
Right.
These are just common things and just impulses and just redirecting some of those behaviors. And I think that with a parent whose full attention is not on their child fully at home, it's a detriment. We're seeing that in the classroom.
Having taken a Zoom call and had both a child on a coffee table and coloring on the walls, I can, attest to everything you just said right then.
Yes.
I can honestly say during COVID, I think that our daycare shut down for about 4.5 months.
Right.
And yeah, that was the running joke we had was any money we saved from not paying daycare went to the liquor store instead. I mean, it was, I don't know how groups do it.
The mental health professional.
Yeah, it was.
One of the home repairs.
It was definitely one of those things where, and my wife and I were tag teaming it. Like we were able to get everything done, but at the same point in time, she and I joked around about the fact that like, weren't we going to save money over the last 4 months? What happened? Like it's truly remarkable the difference that my kids had, especially between staying home, and we made it a point to have one parent with them at all times. Like we were trading off watching both kids and all that, and it still was, it's nuts.
Yeah.
And that wasn't any disrespect to the working parent
No,
that
not at
wants
all.
to stay
No,
home. And
not
there's
at
a
all.
lot of wonderful parents out there that want that time with their kiddos. But if they really sat back to think, are they giving their kiddo that attention they need? Mm-hmm. Is that more beneficial than being in a structured classroom or program?
Right. Yeah. No.
And they have to make that decision, just like they have to vet a preschool, right? It may be for them or may not be, but you touched on it. And, those social emotional connections, those first 5-year foundationals, it's where it's at. And if money is the issue, there's lots of programs like mine that are open to vouchers. So we have essential worker vouchers. So if you're an essential worker, you're on the front line, with COVID or the fear of COVID coming back, round 2. There's funding out there, especially for those families, or low income if it's a single parent home or grandparent raising. We have so many different cases right now inside of my school that I have not seen in a lot of past years. And it's heavy, it's heavy, but we are meeting those children where they're at. And that's what's crucial, is to meet the child where they're at. That's not going to look the same as we line them all up. And you've just got to have those teachers. You've got to have that retention, and you've got to know where your students are at. And you got to have support people in the community that can get us the training or get us the resource or get us the marketing opportunity to put the word out there for help.
For sure.
Where are some of those resources so we could put some links in the description to make sure
Absolutely.
that we're there?
Well, you can always go to our website at nwachildcare.org.
Definitely.
And we have parent education classes even offered for free.
Nice.
So if families, from divorce, anger management, behavior guidance, all different topics, and we have them in person and Zoom. So families can attend those. We also have classes for our early childhood providers, and like I mentioned, looking for childcare. But we have a lot of great resources. So that's one thing I would say definitely here in Northwest Arkansas, that a lot of nonprofits, a lot of great resources.
Right.
So depending on the needs of those families, that reach out, and we're glad to help them with those services or partner with the parents at the early childhood provider programs and see what we can do. Because that's also what a lot of our centers are seeing too, that from staff and parents coming in, and some are just asking for resources. If it's food, shelter, classes, all those type of things. Coats, Christmas coming up, because we know in order to make those children and help them be successful, that we have to help the parents. And so that is something too that a lot of our centers, they're struggling as with their staff and those parents. And so if we can partner as a community and tell them, maybe reach out to United Way 211, or reach out through the chamber through different resources, or whatever we can do as a community and partner and support our early childhood providers, is going to help the parents and going to help the teachers and help the students that are in those programs too.
Is there anything you can add as an owner, especially if someone has just recently opened a spot up here in Northwest Arkansas, or just someone who's listening in and trying to get any tips and tricks of the trade, as it were? What would you tell another owner who's trying to find access to those resources and things like that?
Absolutely. I would say get to know your colleagues, get to know the supports that are in town for you, get to know your licensing specialist within the Benton County licensing unit. They've got behavior management, there's Project Play, there's all type of resources within the division that can help support. I am happy to visit with anybody in this industry that is looking to start up. I'm sitting with my third daycare, and I'm 45 years old. So I've been there, I've done this for half of my life, and I love what we do, but we've got to push for some change and advocate for these babies.
For anyone who doesn't have kids, either they're thinking about having them, or they just don't have kids right now, or
Start applying for childcare now.
Yes. Come get on our waiting list, take a tour.
Yes, exactly. But for those who maybe don't have kids but want to help out in some other way or anything like that, how can they try to help? Because there are plenty of people who are passionate about wanting to help these kids without having any of their own. So where would they go?
I would have them just reach out to the center directly and speak to a director, or any member of management on my team could help support that. We love our open door policy. We invite the community in. I do believe Walmart and Sam's Club, they have volunteer programs, and their employees get some monetary dollars or some
their
accolade
give
there.
back programs.
As they get to volunteer. And so it's a two-way win. And it helps that support.
Right. And sometimes, it can just be somebody coming in and read, or those community helpers, finding out ways that, like Dina said, reach out to directors or people, or if it's a team building activity, garden, all kinds of stuff, that figure out how could we give back to these early childhood programs. Just because you don't have children, your coworker, or you might one day have children, and that giving back to our local community is something we all should be doing.
Yeah, one of the best smiles we ever saw was when we did the Ignite program for the chamber one year. And that's a program where staff is given an amount of money, and we go find ways to give it back to the community. And so something that we did is we partnered with Moe's, and they gave us a bunch of free food, and we went and donated lunch for a child care center.
I remember.
And they were just like, oh my gosh. Like, it was they were the happiest.
Yes.
They were more
The
grateful
little
than anybody else we did. It was the first time anybody had done that for them.
I have 68 staff between my buildings, and I can tell you, we do not miss a snack, and they love a good meal. So
Yeah. Dina, what'd you do for your staff today, actually?
so today Sonic had 50-cent corn dogs.
Oh.
So we made cute little graphics, and we just said, we know it's corny, but you're our dog. We love you. And we gave everybody corn dogs.
That's cool.
But it's just part of retention. It's part of them, it's Halloween. It's something fun. And I just wanted them to know I thought about them. And it cost me 50 cents per person.
Right.
That's
Sometimes it's the little things for sure that we all need.
Or just an extra hand or two on picture day, or things like she said. That's where we feel that support. It doesn't always have to be monetary. It's just somebody there listening, or just hearing us out, or being there.
Yeah.
Oh, picture day. There's another lovely thing to think about. See, this is what folks don't think about when it comes to again, they do picture day.
Yeah.
I want you all to imagine this. Hundreds of kids under the age of 5.
You remember how bad it was in high school?
Yeah.
Now imagine 4-year-olds.
Exactly. And you got to
Backdrop
wrangle
color,
that.
prop,
Maybe
head tilt, all the things.
they've shown up, and the parent just put them in the nice outfit.
They forgot.
But they're not doing the picture until like 11.
Yeah.
You got to keep that 3-year-old clean until then. This whole new dimension.
If your
right
center
here.
is proactive, they might tell you to bring that outfit to change into later.
Yes.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
It's just really helpful. Like today for Halloween.
Yep.
We had a few dinosaurs roll through the door, right? A few princesses. But we quickly take those off because it's so upsetting if those were to get ruined.
Yeah.
But what
or,
were the kids dressed as?
Yeah.
Yes. It's always a challenge, but it's the most rewarding thing I think I've ever been a part of is my industry.
Well, that's a good segue into my last question. So we've talked about a bunch of the stuff that you guys are definitely wanting and needing, but this is also something both of you are passionate about. So let's end on something a little bit more positive here. And if each of y'all could just give us maybe why you are so passionate about early childhood education. What got you into this line of work?
You want to go
Who
first?
wants to go? We both go.
I can go. I
Sure,
don't mind.
go for it.
So for me, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was always the retail buyer, and so it moved us around a lot. I was raised, sometimes with my grandparents because it was a one-parent home, not because they weren't married.
Right.
Just dad was busy working. And for me, I remember my early childhood years. I remember the old spool, and that was my art center. And I remember the big glass door that I would always watch my mom roll up and roll out every day. And for me, I just, as a single mom growing up, I knew that I could do it better. I knew that there were things that were important to me that I just couldn't seem to find here in our area. And so I did those.
Yeah.
I made that come to life. And I've raised my 3 kids. I'm a single mother again. And now I'm a grandmother. And so to see it come full circle, my daughter now works there as a director. My grandchildren attend there, and I can have my hands on that. I can see
Right.
that they're safe. If there's something I don't like, we can make small changes, or we can advocate for change. And to me, it's just, I feel it's what I've been called to do.
That's good. It's a good
That's
reason.
fantastic. Yeah. And kind of goes along with the whole, I'm not just the owner, I'm a customer too. You get that extra dynamic. I think that's, perfect. That's wonderful.
And for me, I love, above all of that, is just pouring into my people.
Right.
Right. Those connections with my families and children are amazing, but it's those teachers too that we get to just leave our mark on and just raise them up and grow them up. I know that they're maybe going to be just a stepping stone to where they're going, but if I can have any impact there or grow them at all, that's my goal. And I think that's what sets my buildings apart and my teams apart.
Yeah.
It's my people.
It's fantastic.
Wow, good job.
Yeah, follow that.
Yes, follow
Bet you
that.
wish you went first now.
Yes, I should have went first for sure. I knew you had passion. That's why she'd be great today. So I would say for me is also just that passion when it comes to our early childhood providers and parents here in the community. I've always just enjoyed. I guess y'all know I like to network and meet people in the community, all that kind of stuff. And so I think just constantly trying to find those resources and trying to have those just connection points too of how are we going to build our early childhood providers? How are we going to work together as a community? So I think, again, just having that passion, it's hard to believe. I've almost done this 20 years. Been with the same agency since I got out of college.
Wow.
And so obviously I enjoy this early childhood field. I would like to see some changes, and I hope if we continue doing these things here in the community. We've actually recently awarded the recent leads for Northwest Arkansas. So we're excited to see how we can partner with existing businesses and our providers. And we hope we see some good changes and just keep seeing the good stuff happening here in Northwest Arkansas.
For sure. Fantastic. Well, I love the positivity, so I want to cut us off there before we get too deep in it. Before we go to our closing, we didn't mention this up top, but we have to mention the sponsor again.
Oh man, we jumped into it. I'm slipping today.
It's okay, Steve. It's okay. I understand you don't get to hound me about it, so it's
I know.
something
It's
you're
not
as
top of
excited
mind.
about. But yes, podcastvideos.com. Again, they provided this wonderful setup for us and allowed us to be here and really kind of check things out and get a fantastic product out there for you guys. I'm going to make sure we get these videos up so that you all can see them as well as listen to them on all the podcast channels. But again, just wanted to give another shout out to podcastvideos.com for all of the help that they have been giving us in making the podcast happen while we were undergoing our renovation and things like that. So
and the new studio they're building is going to be even better than what we got now. This is fantastic, and the new building has multiple avenues, different styles, for on camera, off camera, however you want to do it. Like, that's going to be absolutely going to be fantastic.
Hanging mics, lazy boys, the works. It's going to be great.
Yes.
So fantastic. Just wanted to make sure we got that in there. I also want to encourage everyone to like, subscribe, and share via SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple, Google, YouTube, Amazon, all of the different social media groups. Teasing our next episode that we're going to be bringing out, actually maybe switching all over the place, but our topics have kind of been coming and going. So we do have a couple of ones that are coming up in terms of appreciation and thankfulness, of course, for Thanksgiving. And then we also have another one that's coming up that we're recording next week that is going to be covering workforce housing, probably the other issue top of mind with everyone in Northwest Arkansas, right there with early childhood education. Getting these really heavy topics right off the bat, right?
So, way to enter the holiday season.
That's right. Giving all these people just a great way to end their year, right? So make sure that you guys do that. I want to thank again our wonderful guests for coming here and sharing their stories with us. Michelle Wynn, co-director of Childcare Aware of Northwest Arkansas and a board of directors member with the Rogers Old Chamber, and Dina Ford, owner of Wild About Learning Academy and Wild About Learning Academy West. I got that right?
Yes, sir. And thank you for having us today.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, I'll toss it back to you to do our one final goodbye.
Well, I think enough has been said. It's child care. People need it. It impacts the workforce. It impacts the business community. It impacts the children themselves. And everybody who doesn't want their child. The goal of every parent is to see their child be better than them. And so investing in early childhood education, finding ways to fix these problems, whether that's legislatively, there's federal programs out there, state programs, there are things that can and should be changed. The governor has said she's passionate about early childhood education and wants to put some investments in there. So hopefully we can do that. So talk to your legislators. Fiscal session's coming up. So let's, see what we can do about getting some more funding to help address this issue, which is just going to benefit all of Northwest Arkansas.
And then make sure you reach out to those programs like we've talked about, like Childcare Aware. And if you have a kid in daycare or even just know folks who are around here, talk to the owners, talk to the programs that are there. They've got needs as well, and I'm sure are more than willing to lend or ask for a helping hand and go from there. So perfect. Well, Thank you again. Thank you all for listening, and we will catch you next time.